Oh no! Professor X had lost his power to read minds. In the previous week, Professor X sensed two different mutants intrusively probing his mind, but when he counter-probed to investigate, the traces of the probes disappeared before he could get a lock on them. Then, a few days later, they had suddenly reappeared, but before he could do anything about them, he lost almost all of his telepathic power. Frustrated, the professor was determined to thwart off the intruders to his mind and regain his full power. With the help of his buddy, the Beast, they calculated that two different types of telepathic waves were responsible for this loss of power. The subtractive waves weakened his mind by taking away some power, but it was the division waves that took the biggest toll on his abilities. He hadn't ever really measured Professor X's telepathic power before, but in their new analytical measurements, they calculated that Professor X was now at a telepathic power level of only 10 neurotrons, which was scarcely enough to even tell that Beast was hungry for lunch. Together, they discovered a way to counter these debilitating waves, but they had to make sure they got Professor X back to exactly the power he had before this incident, or the result could be fatal. So they studied the telepathic waves that were affecting Professor X, and they realized that the subtractive wave subtracted exactly 6 neurotrons of power from the professor. The division waves, which were even stronger, reduced his power to only 1/3 of what he had left. They put Professor X into Cerebro, where they would be able to counterattack these dangerous waves. First, in order to counter the subtractive waves that subtracted 6 neurotrons from his power, they used an additive wave that added 6 neurotrons of power. Then, to counterattack the division waves, which divided his power by a factor of 3, he used Cerebro to amplify his power by a factor of 3. In other words, he multiplied his power by 3. After adding 6 neurotrons to the 10 he still had, he grew his power to 16. Then, by multiplying that power by a factor of 3, his power increased to 48 neurotrons, which, thankfully, was exactly the number the professor needed to be back to his old self. With a quick use of his powers, he found the two evil mutants who were using their powers against him, and he seized control of their minds and stopped them from using their powers ever again. They were amazed that the professor's powers were as high as 48 neurotrons, more powerful than any of them expected. In fact, there was only one mutant who had more telepathic power than the professor. Do you know who that was?